What if I told you that one of the greatest goalkeepers in football history was never supposed to play the game at all? This is the story of a man who cheated death to become a legend. To make sure you don't miss more stories of icons who defied the odds, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications now. In the heart of former Czechoslovakia, in the city of Plzeň, a place famous for its golden lagers, a boy named Petr Cech was born on a late spring day in 1982. Plzeň has a proud history of forging incredible athletes, and from a young age, it seemed young Peter was destined to carry on that tradition. But fate, as it so often does, had a winding path in mind, and it certainly wasn't leading him toward a football pitch. No, Petr Cech's first true love was ice hockey. In his homeland, it was the king of all sports, a blur of speed, skill, and brutal physicality. With a frame that already towered over his friends, Peter was a natural, a promising defenseman, with dreams of gliding on those lightning-fast skates, of making decisive, bone-rattling blocks in front of the small goal on the cold, unforgiving ice. That was his world, his future. But life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. At just 10 years old, a cruel twist of fate rerouted his entire life. First, a harsh reality: his family simply couldn't afford the expensive specialized equipment that ice hockey demanded. Then a physical blow: while playing a casual game of football with friends, he broke his leg. It was a nasty fracture, an accident that felt like a devastating end to a budding sports career before it had even truly begun. During his long recovery, unable to run, unable to skate, Peter began to look at the round leather ball in a completely new way. He discovered a position that didn't demand constant running a role, where his height and reflexes could be an advantage goalkeeper. Initially, he played wherever he was needed, sometimes in midfield, sometimes even as a striker. But then destiny, having nudged him, once called his name loud and clear. During a training session for the FC Victoria Plzeň youth team, the squad's main goalkeeper didn't show up. The coach, frustrated, scanned the field, his eyes landing on the tall, lanky kid who seemed to fill the space around him. "You Czech, get in goal." A simple command, but it echoed like a prophecy. Reluctantly, Petr pulled on the unfamiliar gloves. From the very first save, the first dive, something clicked. He felt it in his bones. This was it. This was where he belonged. His startlingly quick reflexes, his uncanny ability to anticipate the striker's next move, and those long, crane-like arms transformed him into an incredible, almost impassable shot stopper. The boy who once dreamed of a kingdom on ice had just found his true dominion right there between the posts, in that sacred 7.32-meter-wide space. Czech's raw talent blossomed with incredible speed. At just 17 years old, he was already making his professional debut for FK Chmel. It was a small club, a humble stage, but their goal was being protected by a future giant. 2 seasons were all it took. The whispers started, then grew into a roar. Sparta Prague, the undisputed titan of Czech football, came calling in 2001. They didn't hesitate. They knew they were signing someone special. At Sparta, Peter didn't just play, he dominated. He set a mind-boggling national record, keeping a clean sheet for 903 consecutive competitive minutes. Nearly 10.5 full matches without conceding a single goal. This astonishing feat launched his name far beyond the borders of the Czech Republic. He wasn't just a goalkeeper anymore. He was a fortress wall. His saves weren't just spectacular. They were performed with a rare, unnerving calmness, the quiet confidence of a man born to command his penalty area. That brilliant record-breaking performance put him on the radar of scouts from every major league in Europe. In the summer of 2002, Cech took his first major leap into the European spotlight, joining the French club Rennes. This was a real test. Ligue 1 was a physical, demanding league, a huge step up from his home turf. But Petr Cech was unfazed. He quickly established himself not just as the team's #1, but as one of the very best goalkeepers in the entire league. In that same fateful summer of 2002, he became a national hero. As the leader of the Czech U21 team, he carried the hopes of his nation at the U21 European Championship. In a breathtaking, heart-stopping final against a stacked France U21 team, the championship came down to the ultimate test of nerve, a penalty shootout. And that right there was Petr Cech's stage. He was immense. He saved 2 of the French penalties, a giant figure of defiance, single-handedly bringing home a historic championship for his country's youth football. The image of the young towering goalkeeper being mobbed by his ecstatic teammates became a symbol of hope for an entire generation. All of Europe knew his name now. And a certain club in London, a club with ambitions to completely redraw the map of world football, had just placed his name right at the very top of their shopping list. This young man's journey was already incredible. But what do you think is the single most important quality for a young player to make that leap from a domestic league to one of Europe's top divisions? Is it pure talent, mental strength, or just being in the right place at the right time? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. In the summer of 2004, Chelsea Football Club, flush with the cash of new owner Roman Abramovich and helmed by the charismatic self-proclaimed Special One, Jose Mourinho, began a revolution. They weren't just building a team, they were building an empire. And the foundation of any great empire has to be an impenetrable defense. For a fee of 7 million, they brought Petr Cech from Rennes to be that foundation. When Cech first arrived at Stamford Bridge, the whispers of skepticism were loud. Chelsea already had a fantastic fan-favorite goalkeeper in Carlo Cudicini. Many questioned the move. But Mourinho saw something different in Cech. He didn't just see excellence. He saw the potential for absolute perfection. And he was right. Cech took the #1 spot almost immediately and never ever looked back. His first season in England wasn't just a success, it was a powerful, undeniable statement. Chelsea stormed to the Premier League title for the first time in 50 long years, and Petr Cech was the beating heart of that triumph. He set a Premier League record that still feels impossible today. 24 clean sheets in a single season. He conceded only 15 goals all year. Along the way, he went 1-0-25 minutes without conceding a single goal, another league record at the time. The nickname Mr. Zero was born, and it was earned. Alongside the legendary defensive line of John Terry Ricardo Carvalho and William Gallas Cech, formed one of the most famously solid backlines in the history of English football. He wasn't a flashy keeper seeking the spectacular save for the cameras. He was brutally, chillingly effective. His command of the box, his flawless timing when coming off his line, his world-class reflexes, and his almost supernatural calmness in the most high-pressure situations turned him into an impregnable fortress. With Cech in goal, the Chelsea players took the field with an absolute unshakable confidence. They knew even if they made a mistake, they had a reliable giant behind them to clean it up. In those years, Chelsea was a machine, a relentless force. And Petr Cech was the symbol of their dominance. His career was at its absolute pinnacle. He was widely regarded as the best goalkeeper in the world, the crown jewel of Chelsea. But then, on a dark gray October day in 2006, disaster struck. In a match against Reading at the Medeski Stadium in the very first minute of the game, Cech did what he always did. He bravely dived at the feet of the onrushing striker Stephen Hunt to smother the ball. Hunt's knee collided with Cech's head with horrific, sickening force. The entire stadium fell into a stunned silence. Petr lay motionless on the grass, his teammates their faces etched with horror, and the medical staff sprinted onto the pitch. He was carefully stretchered off and rushed straight to the hospital. The diagnosis sent a shockwave through the entire football world. Petr Cech had a depressed skull fracture. This wasn't a typical football injury. This was an injury that could have taken his life, let alone his career. The doctors performed emergency surgery to save him later, admitting he was incredibly lucky to even be alive. His future in football, the career he had built so brilliantly, was now a giant, terrifying question mark. Many believed, and it was hard to argue, that the great goalkeeper's story had ended tragically at the age of just 24. But inside that quiet giant of a man was a will forged of unbreakable iron. Petr Cech began the biggest fight of his life, not for a trophy, but for his life and his career. The recovery process was agonizing. He had to face constant debilitating headaches, the mental scars of the trauma, and the very real fear of another collision. But he refused to give up. Buoyed by the love of his family, the unwavering support of his club, and the prayers of millions of fans around the world, Cech fought like a warrior. And then, a miracle. Just 3 months after that horrific life-threatening injury in January 2007, Petr Cech returned to the pitch for a match against Liverpool. He walked out of the tunnel wearing something that would become his defining feature, a protective leather scrum cap, custom designed to shield his injured head. That helmet, initially a piece of medical necessity, instantly became an inseparable part of his image. It was never a sign of weakness. It was a symbol of extraordinary courage, of a man reborn from the brink of death. The Chelsea fans roared, welcoming him back, not just as a player, but as a hero returning from war. And he did not let them down. He was still that wall, still that reliable, commanding presence. Only now he also carried with him the awe-inspiring story of a miracle. Stories of resilience like Cech's are what make football more than just a game. They remind us of the human spirit. If you believe these are the stories that need to be told, make sure you're subscribed to Legends of Football League, because we are dedicated to bringing you the most inspiring and dramatic tales from the beautiful game's history. Returning from that devastating injury, Cech didn't just regain his form. He seemed impossibly even stronger. He continued to be the bedrock of Chelsea's success, winning numerous domestic titles with the club. But there was still one dream, one glorious obsession that both he and the club craved above all others: the UEFA Champions League trophy. After a heartbreaking penalty shootout loss to Manchester United in Moscow in 2008, the chance for redemption finally came in 2012. And this time the challenge was even more immense. They had to face the mighty Bayern Munich in their own stadium, the Allianz Arena, in the final. It was a night that would forever etch Petr Cech's name into the pantheon of legends. Chelsea was battered under relentless pressure for almost the entire match. But every single time the Bayern strikers unleashed a seemingly unstoppable shot, they were met by the colossal-inspired figure of Petr Cech. He flew, he stretched, he dived single-handedly, frustrating the superstars of the home team. The drama reached its peak in extra time when Chelsea conceded a penalty. Arjen Robben, a former Chelsea player himself, stepped up to the spot. The world held its breath. Cech, a picture of focus, dived the right way, parrying Robben's shot and keeping the impossible dream alive for the Blues. The match inevitably went to a fateful penalty shootout. And once again, this was Petr Cech's stage. He used every ounce of his experience, his intelligence, and his psychological gamesmanship to face down the Bayern penalty takers. He saved Ivica Olic's shot. He psyched out Bastian Schweinsteiger, whose shot crashed against the post. And then Didier Drogba stepped up, coolly slotting home the decisive penalty to bring Chelsea their first, and to this day, only Champions League title. The Chelsea players were all heroes that night. But Petr Cech was their saint. He had done the impossible. The glorious years rolled on, but the rules of football are forever harsh and unsentimental. A gifted young Belgian keeper, Thibaut Courtois, returned to Chelsea after a hugely successful loan spell and began to challenge Cech's undisputed position, Despite still playing at the absolute peak of his powers, Cech had to accept a role on the bench. For a born competitor like him, a man with a burning desire to be on the field, sitting and watching, was simply unacceptable. In the summer of 2015, after 11 glorious years, 4 Premier League titles, 4 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, 1 Europa League, and that one historic Champions League trophy, Petr Cech made a gut-wrenching decision. He said goodbye to the club he loved, to the fans who adored him, and joined their fierce city rivals, Arsenal. It was a bitter but necessary transfer. He left Stamford Bridge as a true club legend, with the respect and love of every single person there. At Arsenal, he immediately proved his enduring class, bringing stability and veteran experience to a sometimes fragile Gunners' defense and adding 1 more FA Cup to his immense collection. In 2019, at the age of 37, Petr Cech decided it was finally time to hang up his gloves. In a final cruel twist of fate, the last match of his professional career was the Europa League final, with his Arsenal side facing Chelsea. He fought with everything he had, but his former team was stronger on the day. He ended his career with a defeat, but he left that pitch, as always, with his head held high. The final whistle of that match was the final whistle of an extraordinary career. But the legacy Petr Cech left behind is immortal. He isn't just remembered as one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time, with a list of records and titles that speaks for itself. He is remembered as a symbol of ultimate professionalism. An intelligent and thoughtful man who could speak 5 languages, a quiet leader, and above all, a shining example of human will and resilience. His helmet became one of the most iconic images in all of world football. It's a constant reminder that even when you face the very worst adversity, when life knocks you down in the most brutal way, you can stand back up, fight, and conquer new heights. After retiring in a move that felt like closing a perfect circle, Cech returned to Chelsea as a technical and performance advisor, passing on his vast knowledge to the next generation. And then, as if to finally complete his own childhood story, he returned to his first love, ice hockey. He signed a semi-professional contract to play for the Guildford Phoenix as a goaltender. The boy from Plzeň had finally, after all those years, fulfilled his dream on the ice rink. The story of Petr Cech is nothing short of an epic. It's the journey of a boy who was forced to give up the ice rink only to become a king on the football pitch. It's the story of a hero who stared death in the face and came back stronger than ever. It's the story of a legend who conquered every glory the game has to offer. He is a fortress wall, Mr. Beer Zero, and forever in the hearts of football fans, everywhere the man in the helmet. And that's where this incredible football story concludes. What a journey, right? I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment from his career stood out to you the most? Did his struggle and unbelievable comeback resonate with you? Please share all your opinions, your favorite moments, and any questions you have about the story in the comments below. I truly love reading them and building this amazing football community with all of you.